So thank you very much, everybody, for joining from the States, from Canada, from Europe, wherever you may be. It's a small enrollment. It was intended to be a small number of people. And I think it's going to be quite intense. In the next 4 months, August, September, October, November, so we have 4 months. I can count to 4. We're going to try and do something that is pitched at a sort of a 3rd and 4th year level, university level. And I don't think any of you, I'm sure none of you will have trouble with it. I'm a very good teacher, if I do say so myself. And I've got lots of experience. And so what I'm going to try and do is I'm going to try and take this group who already have skills. There's no doubt about it in the real estate development industry, but I'm going to try and take you from one place where you are now to another level. And Alex, you might find this interesting. Over my teaching career, which has spanned a number of universities and a number of different positions, I have found 3rd and 4th year university students to be, I don't want to say more on the ball, but to be more interesting to me as a teacher than a lot of my MBA classes. And I'm going to turn this off. Sorry about that. I'll turn this off so it doesn't ping every few minutes. And the reason for that is I find that a lot of young people, you know, in 3rd and 4th year university are full of ideas. They're not afraid. They're going to create really significant and different kinds of businesses, whether it's tech or it's real estate or any other kind of business. And then by the time they get to the MBA level, they've stopped thinking different, right? You know, the Apple, I think the Apple, you know, sort of tagline is think different. And that's kind of what this course is all about. It's about real estate development, but it's also about thinking differently about real estate development. Most people, when they think about real estate development, you know, if they're thinking about being an investor, they think about, oh, I got to buy a house and I got to rent it, or I got to buy a townhouse, I'm going to rent it, or I got to, if they're really, you know, off the edge of the reservation, they're going to say, I got to buy a house and put a basement apartment in and rent 2 units instead of 1. Well, that's fine. There's nothing wrong with that. But what we're going to try and do is we're going to try and push the boundaries much, much further in so many ways. All right. So I'm asking you all to sort of think back. Some of you are very young. Some of you, like me, are not so young. But I want you to think back to when you were younger and when all things seemed possible. Because in my opinion, there has never been a better time to be in business. Never. I know there are lots of challenges out there. Mortgage rates are going up. There's war. There's climate, change that we have to cope with. There's many things we have to cope with, but this is not new. I'll share with you a story I found very interesting, that at some point or other, the human race was reduced to about 2,000 souls. Think about that. There's about 7 or 8 billion people on this planet right now. But at some point in the distant past, humans have been around in one form or another for a few million years. Due to climate change, we were reduced to a very small number of people. And there was one lady, one woman, who was particularly fecund. I don't know if I got that right, but, you know, productive. And she had a bunch of kids. And those kids, DNA, for all the people on this call and all the people on this planet, we can trace that DNA marker to that one lady. That's the Eve of the human race today. All of us share some of her DNA, and they think we were down to 2,000 souls. So the human race is very adaptable and extremely clever, as well as incredibly dumb. We all know that. We're both very, very, very smart people, and we're also very, very stupid, and sometimes all of us, and some more than others. And so what I'm asking you to do in this course is to think different and to be open to new ways of doing things, which will help you in many ways. One, it'll make your projects more productive, and you'll get a higher return on your projects than other people will. That's great. Okay, that's good for you. But we'll also make our cities and towns, our nations, more resilient, and our communities better. So it's kind of a two-pronged approach. It's not just to teach you guys how to make more money. That is part of the course, and that's an important part of the course. But it's my opinion that as we animate, you're going to hear that word until you're sick of it. I'm not talking Disney animation. So Dan, the two Dans and Alex and everybody who's new to me or relatively new to me, animation is about adding more revenue streams to real estate. I got into coaching about 9 years ago after I finally retired from teaching. You know, I was going to retire at age 60, but they kept me on for a victory lap, and I didn't get. They didn't reduce my sentence. I had to serve until I was 61, and then at 61 I was able to finally retire. And I was wondering what I was going to do next. And so what I decided to do, after I got some life coaching on my own, what I decided to do was I decided to become a real estate investment and development coach. And when I decided that, I realized I probably couldn't add a whole lot on the cost side of this business. In other words, I'm not the right guy to teach you how to save money on your gas bill in your rental property. You know, maybe you could go from 4 gas meters to 3 and save a fixed charge every month of $80. That's important. You have to control costs. There's no doubt about that. But that's not my specialty. If we want to know something about how to save money in construction, we should ask Jake Taylor on the call here. He's an expert at that. He knows a hell of a lot more about it, and he's able to produce at new construction in Canada for $220 a square foot, which would cost me $300. I'm a retail buyer. He's a wholesale buyer. He's a developer. He's a construction guy. He's a knowledgeable. All right. So if we want to look at the cost side of this business, it's very important, but I'm not the right guy to teach that. So what I decided to do was to focus on the revenue side of the business. And that's going to be a recurring theme for the next 4 months. Now, there is some work for you guys to do. I've given you some homework. I'm not going to ask if you've done it yet, all the reading and other things, but I am going to ask over the next 4 months to get the most out of this course for you. And frankly, for me too, is try and do as much of the homework as you can. All right, as much of the reading, as many of the trainings as you can, because the objective here is to put you into another level. I can't do that on my own. I'm a good teacher, but not that good. I need your cooperation, so I need you to do some of the homework. All right. Now, what I'm going to do is I'm going to dive right into a case study just to get us going, and then after I do that one case study, I'm going to ask each of you to introduce yourself. And I did send earlier this morning what a typical introduction looks like, but try and keep it brief. You know, it's not a soliloquy, you know, like Hamlet, right? If you know how long Hamlet stands up there and does this, it's got to be 20 minutes. So it may be 3 minutes or 2 minutes each, okay? So I'm going to share my screen with you. And when I looked at my slide deck this morning, the one that I had prepared over the last couple of weeks, I realized it was 701 slides. And yeah, I'm glad you're laughing because that is a bit much, right? So it was, so I cut it down a little bit, but still there's a lot to go through today, and I've got you for 2 hours, okay? So, you know, if you need to have a break, just let me know, but we're gonna stick together here for a couple of hours. So as I said, this is a 3rd or 4th year university level course. It's called Home Run. The major assignment that I'm going to ask you to do is each of you, and some of you have already done this, pick out a project that you want to analyze during the 4 months that we're together in detail. All right, I want you to think about that in detail, and I'll tell you exactly what I'm expecting. So I want a really great assignment, which you are going to present to the class at the end of the 4 months. All right, so I'm going to help you with that. And there is going to be a final exam. I told you about that. Don't worry about it. You'll all pass, no doubt. But you need a 75% or better to pass, and then you get a certificate from me. I call this the Firestone Institute, but the Firestone Institute is just me. And so what I would, I would say to you, in all seriousness, that a certificate from me, especially for the younger people here, I think will be worth something. It'll help you with appraisers. It'll help you with your finance. It'll help you with planners, because you'll say, look, I was trained by Firestone. Okay. And I think that does make a difference. Okay. So anyway, this is the Home Run course. And again, welcome. All right. I used to say there were 3 quickest ways to get poor. All right. 3 quickest ways to get poor. 1, get divorced. Fortunately, I haven't done that. And I know Bob hasn't done that either. Right, Bob? Not a chance. I still love my wife after 37 years. And I hope we have many more years together. So get divorced. That's a good way to get poor. Buy a horse ranch, or I added a golf club, and buy an NHL team, which I did do. So out of the first three, I did one of them. I didn't buy a horse ranch, but I did buy an NHL team. And that I can tell you, in the NHL, there's an inside joke. Some of you have heard this before from me. And that is, the second happiest day of your business life is the day you buy an NHL team. The happiest is the day you sell it. All right. I love being an NHL owner for the Ottawa Senators, but it ate $55.6 million of my money. So there you go. But then I added a fourth one, and you can see it. I highlighted it here on the screen for you. Become a real estate developer. I'm not kidding. I know you all want to become real estate developers. Some of you already are, and you want to become perhaps a real estate developer. I encourage you to do that. I have been a real estate developer, but it is also a way to lose a ton of money if you don't know what you're doing. The other thing is, I put on here how to stay poor. All right. So how to get poor, those are the first four things. The next four things are how to stay poor. Don't invest. Investors beat savers almost all the time. Okay. People often say, oh, you should save money. I've never saved a dime in my life, but I'm a good investor, except for the NHL investment. And a lot of people say, well, I'm looking for a shortcut to riches. The only shortcut that exists is a shortcut to failure. So you have to put in the effort at work. So when people ask you, as they will, as your career goes on, is there any passive income I can develop in real estate that doesn't require any work? You can answer for them right now, no. There isn't any business that I know, any enterprise that I know that requires no work. And although I'm not particularly good at it, controlling your costs and living above your means is surefire way to remain poor. The last one is maybe not so obvious, and that is to stop learning, experimenting, and educating yourself. The moment you say, I know everything, nobody can teach me anything, that includes yours truly, you are old. You already know, all of you guys know old 30-year-olds, and young 70-year-olds, right? And the reason that a 30-year-old is old isn't that he or she has been around the sun 30 times. It's because they say, I'm good, I know everything. No, they don't know everything. And once you close yourself off, you're in trouble. Now, there's a couple of statements at the bottom. I'm only going to read the last one on the screen. It's the last 3% of money you spend on any project that really counts. I cannot emphasize this enough. I can't tell you how many people build beautiful buildings, really, but don't finish the landscaping. They build beautiful buildings, but the garage looks a mess. The backyard looks a mess. Some of the finishes are not up to par. And in our business, I don't care what kind of real estate project it is, it's the last 3% or 5% of money you spent that people actually see. And a perfect example of that is if I'm renovating a 3-story downtown building right now, and I had an appraiser go in about 2 or 3 weeks ago to have a look at the building, and it's not finished yet. That is not a good idea. That's on me, not on the appraiser, because appraisers are just like home buyers. They're extremely impressed by the look and feel of a place. All right. So if you're building a new building and you get an appraisal before you're completely finished, your appraisal will suffer. It's just like when you're selling it to, say you were selling a home to a home buyer, the lady of the house or the man of the house comes in and they see that some elements are not finished, right? Maybe the trim isn't on, or the baseboard isn't on. Well, right away, the value of the property goes down by $20,000 or more. Same thing with appraisers. It's unfortunately, the appraiser can't see, doesn't have X-ray vision like Superman, can't see behind the drywall, see all the good stuff you've done on the structure and all kinds of other wonderful things that you've done. They just see the surface, and that's really important, all right? So remember, finish, and that includes yours truly. I got to finish. All right, so we're going to dive in and do a project, an analysis of a project. This is a 6-plex, 10-plex that one of my clients has developed in Sarnia, and Jake, you would know this building pretty well. And these are Ruben Ugarte and Marilu Aguilar. They're coaching clients of mine based in North Vancouver. And they have experience in both multi-res development across Canada and also mini storage. It's apples and oranges, I get that, but that's what they do. And so they've developed this really fine plan for a brand new three-story sixplex on a site in Sarnia, which is in Ontario. And you can see the design here a little bit. And this is an elevation and a section. It just gives you a sense of what this building looks like. And here's a floor plan. This is the first floor. This is the second floor. Don't worry, I'm going to come back to this in a second. So first floor, second floor. You don't have to focus on this because I've got a little better drawing of it in a moment. This is the third floor and the roof. Now, the reason I'm going to stop here is that the roof is a flat roof, and I encourage Ruben and Marilu to develop the flat roof, at least part of it, for what I call a playland. So I have this theory that families that play together stay together, but also tenants who play together tend to stay longer, right? If you know your other tenants, you like them, you know, maybe they're on this roof, you've got outdoor ping pong, you've got a bocce court, you've got cornhole, which is the beanbag toss game, you've got a picnic table, a barbecue, you know, kind of a little bit of a party place where people can get together, they could bring their friends. It's a very important part of real estate. Even in industrial properties that I'm developing, I add a playland. I mean, industrial people, they work hard, they pay their bills, but they like to play as well. Now, here's the floor plan blown up a little bit more. And I want to say, you notice I called it a sixplex, 10plex. What the heck is a sixplex, 10plex? Well, there are 2 units on the ground floor, 2 units on the second floor, 2 on the third floor. So last time I checked, 3 times 2 is 6. But it's also a 10plex, and I'll show you how. Maybe it's actually a 12plex. I think I can't count, at least not past 10. So here's here's the entrance. You come in here, and this is 1 unit here, and this is a second unit here. So we're on the ground floor. You come in here. Here's 1 2-bedroom unit, and here's another 2-bedroom unit. But I want you to focus on this part of the design here. Okay, this is a micro suite. Self-contained micro suite. It has, obviously, it has its own bed. It has its own micro kitchen. It has its own bathroom here. It has its own, you know, privacy, if you will. You can shut the door here. So what you end up with is, you can see, here's the main 1-bedroom unit here, and here is the lock-off suite. So really, this can be rented. It could be rented as 2 units. All right, so it could be a micro suite rent. And you know, I can't believe what I'm getting in terms of micro suite. I own some buildings in Belleville, Ontario, a small town. I think it's smaller than Sarnia. We have 300 to 400 square foot micro suites, sometimes called studio apartments, sometimes called lock-off suites. And I had it in my pro forma that we would get $1,100, maybe $1,200. We're getting $1,600 a month for those. Canada and the States, and certainly in Europe as well, we are not producing enough housing for people, certainly not enough rental housing. You know, I taught in Stockholm at the Hyper Island Institute. I enjoyed that very much, but trying to find a rental apartment in Stockholm is like, I don't know, trying to find, you know, a needle in a haystack. It's really difficult. One of my students had such a tough time. He did a 5-minute or 3-minute dance video in bad Swedish, asking for somebody to take pity on him to rent him an apartment. And he did actually get one from his TikTok video. Maybe it wasn't 5 minutes or 3 minutes. Maybe it was 50 seconds, but it was pretty funny. And he got an apartment out of it. But, you know, if you have to dance for your apartment, you know, it's tough to find a place. So this is why I call it a 6plex, 10plex. In actual fact, because they're done like this, duplexed all the way up, it's actually a 6plex, 12plex. But I want you to think about this. I also call this augmented tenancy, and we've been experimenting with this for about 7 years now. We started about 7 years ago, and I've got clients in the States and in Canada building these, but they would work just as well in Stockholm or wherever. So let's just think about this. So Karina, let's say you own this building, and you have this 2-bedroom apartment here, if you can see my cursor moving around, and you decide you're going to rent it to me, Prof Bruce, for $2,000 a month. But here's the difference with augmented tenancy. You give me, your tenant, permission to rent this out. Okay? You give me permission. It's its own little self-contained suite. So maybe, for example, I decide to put it on Airbnb. So in Sarnia, maybe I get $150 a night for 20 nights. So I get $3,000 out of this. So if you think about it, for poor old Prof Bruce, I'm paying Karina $2,000 for this 2-bedroom unit, but with her permission, I'm renting out this unit for $3,000 a month. I'm living now for a negative amount of money. Okay, but wait, it gets better. All right, remember those late night commercials, right? You get a set of Ginsu knives with it, right? But wait, it gets better for Karina. So Karina, what we've done with augmented tenancy is we borrowed a concept from commercial real estate called percentage rent. Let's say, for example, you had a commercial building and you had a restaurant. You might put in a 4, 5, 6, 7, or 8% percentage rent, which means that you as the landlord, you get, say, 8% of the revenues that the restaurant generates. So you get a base rent in commercial, you get some operating costs, property taxes, utilities, and a percentage rent. So we borrow that concept for augmented tenancy. So maybe, Karina, you rent this to me and you say, Bruce, I'm going to rent this to you for $2,000 a month. I'm going to give you permission to do whatever you want with this, within reason, this lock-off suite. And I'm going to ask for 20% of those revenues as a percentage rent. So if I put this on Airbnb and I get $3,000, now Karina is getting $2,000 plus 20% of $3,000. So now Karina is making more money. So say $2,600 a month instead of $2,000 from this 2-bedroom. But Karina's not doing any extra work. I'm the old guy, and I'm the guy who's putting this on Airbnb. The other neat thing about this is this gets around a lot of the current rules that are coming up in the States and in Canada against Airbnb. A lot of cities and towns will only allow you to rent an Airbnb if it's your own home, right? In this case, it is my own home. I rented it from Karina for $2,000. It is my home, so it's a true bed and breakfast, and I'm welcoming guests in my lock-off suite. Now, from my point of view, how am I doing? Well, I'm paying $2,600, but I'm collecting $3,000 from Airbnb a month, so I'm still living for a negative amount of money. So Karina's making more money, and I'm making more money. Sorry, I'm saving a bunch of money. In fact, I'm making a little bit of money. This is also, in my opinion, the only true solution to affordable housing. All the stuff that you're hearing about affordable housing, throwing money at the problem by the federal government in the states, the state governments, provincial governments, federal governments, are not going to work. They are not. This does. I've got clients in San Francisco doing it. I've got clients in LA doing it. I've got clients in Rockland, Ontario doing it. It works. Augmented tenancy. It's a powerful new tool. I mean, it's not like putting a man or woman on Mars. I understand that, but it is a powerful thing, and it really helps people. In the United States, the average Social Security payout for somebody my age is about $1,300 or $1,400 a month. That is very tough to live on. In Canada, the average Canada pension plan payout is even worse. It's like $640 a month. Now, if anybody on this call can live on $640 a month, you can hang up now. You don't need any more teaching or coaching from me. All right? It's impossible. Now, Jake and I and Paula did some analysis of this 6-plex, 10-plex, which is really a 6-plex, 12-plex, and we couldn't make it work. So this is a fail, but there may be some ways to turn around. But I wanted to show you projects, not just projects that work, but projects that might fail too. So Ruben and Marilu, because they are not construction folks, wanted to sell this to Jake and Paula, possibly. And their sale price is $450,000, which is, both Jake and I think, is a reasonable number. Am I right, Jake? You still there?
Yeah, no, it's a great price. Yeah, it's just, there's the challenges with building, but it's a great price for sure. Site plan ready. It's great.
I think they bought this site for around $250,000 a couple of years ago, but they've spent at least $100,000 on their site plan application, which we're going to talk about a little bit later, which is very complicated and time consuming, requires lots of studies. So from Jake's point of view, as a builder, what he wants to do is he wants to get on the site as fast as he can, start hammering and sawing and building. What he doesn't want to do is buy something and take 2 years to go through a site plan process and spend another $100,000. It's already priced in here. So anyway, let's look at the numbers, all right? It costs $450,000 if Jake and Paula were to buy it. They pay some land transfer tax. pretty much every state and province has something like this, you know, some kind of tax on transfer, stamp duty in many parts of Europe, some legal costs, title insurance, and other disbursements. So maybe it costs $457,000 or $458,000 to buy. Then Jake can build this thing. It's about 7,500 square feet for $220 a square foot, which is a good price. There's nothing wrong with that. As I said earlier in this call, it would cost me at least $300 to do it. All right, so that's a very good price. I put in a big contingency budget, 12%, because there's lots of unknowns here. Then DC stands for development charges. It's just another tax that cities tend to levy. Then there's some engineering and architecture that still has to be done. We need working drawings, and subtrades need to produce their shop drawings as well. So maybe it costs just under $2 million. And then you've got to take into account financing fees. So I assume that it would take the cost of financing, construction financing is not cheap. It's here we put it in at 10% for about 6 months. And there's usually fees, you know, they can charge you 1%, 2%, sometimes 3 or 4% fees. So that financing has almost 140 grand extra. You got to take that into account. So this thing comes out when it's finished at $2.5 million, almost $2.6 million, $430,000 a door. And I can tell you that I coach some very large developers and builders, and that's what it's costing them in Canada. In Florida, I think you could do it cheaper, but in Canada, that's not. I'll bet you if we were in British Columbia, it would be more. All right. So when I looked at the cap rate, and I'm sure you all know what a cap rate is, it's your net operating income divided by your cost. It came out to 4.8%, which is not horrible, but it fails to achieve the Prof Bruce minimum. I say to everybody, do not buy real estate unless it achieves, or develop real estate unless it achieves a minimum of 6%. That's it. All right, because you want to, you don't want to have to reach into your pocket every month and write checks. I did that with the NHL team, and after a few years it gets old. All right, so real estate's no different. You want projects that cash flow. Positive cash flow is really important. Do not pay any attention to people say, hey, listen, especially realtors, and I'm a real estate broker, so I better be careful what I say. But realtors who say, hey, listen, if you buy this for $2.5 million, next year it's going to be worth $3 million, and the year after that, $3.5 million. Don't do that, because prices go up, but they also go down. Cash flow. If Warren Buffett were on this call, I'm sure he would agree with me. He does not buy companies that lose money. He doesn't like losing money. I don't think you should either. And then I put in a selling cap rate, and you notice there's, I don't know, I'm going to stop sharing my screen for a minute. Does everybody know the difference between a selling cap rate and a buying cap rate? Nobody. Dave is shaking his head. I can't see anybody else shaking there because there's cameras are off. Daniel doesn't know. Okay, so does everybody know what a cap? Dan, do you know what Daniel DiNardo? Do you know what a cap rate is? Okay. All right, so forgive me, I'm just going to take a moment to explain it in the simplest way. So Daniel DiNardo is sitting on his couch tonight. Okay, it's already nighttime, or maybe it is. I don't know where you are, Dan. So anyway, Daniel is, I'll call Dan Walkna Dan, I'll call Daniel Daniel. All right, so Daniel is sitting on his couch tonight, and he goes, oh my God, something under this cushion. And he looks under the cushion, and there's 500,000 euros, 500,000 American dollars, 500,000 Canadian dollars, Australian dollars, whatever. He finds $500,000 under the couch. He goes, oh, this is great. Look, I found this is a wonderful couch. So he decides to buy a duplex with his brother, Alex. And they buy that duplex. And that duplex, you know, it has rent from the top unit and the bottom unit. And so you're paying cash for this. Okay, Daniel, you don't need a mortgage. You got $500,000 of cash, and you decided to put it into this duplex. And between the upper unit and the lower unit, it has about $45,000 a year in gross income. You know, probably about $25,000 from the top unit, and the bottom unit about $20,000. So you're renting the bottom unit for, I don't know, $1,800 a month, and the top unit for $2,200 a month. You multiply those numbers by 12, and you add them up, and you get $45,000 of gross operating income. So you go, okay, I have $500,000 here, and I bought an asset. And the asset's producing, you know, $45,000 a year of gross income. But wait, even though you don't have a mortgage, don't worry about the mortgage. You don't have a mortgage, you still have to pay your property taxes. Maybe there's some utilities you're paying. There's some insurance. There's some repairs and maintenance. There's a vacancy allowance. And usually we take off about 34% for that. It's quite a big chunk. So about 34% of your gross operating income goes out the window for stuff that you have to pay as a landlord. And by the way, we don't use the word landlord anymore. We're now rental providers. Landlord has a terrible reputation, right? If you're my landlord, you're a son of a gun. If you're my rental provider, oh, you must be a decent sort of person. So Daniel's my rental provider anyway. And this duplex is making 45,000, but we're going to take off 15 grand for all of those expenses. So you're left with a net operating income of about $30,000. Okay. So $30,000 is the cash you're getting from your duplex, and you spent $500,000. So if you take 30,000 and you divide it by 500,000, you're making 6% on your money. That's a cap rate. Okay, it's very simple to calculate, but extremely important. So Daniel bought this, or he developed this duplex. He's making 6% on his 500 grand. If Daniel had put that $500,000 in the bank, maybe he only gets 1 or 2% from the bank. Say he gets 2%. The bank is super generous this year. And so what's better, Daniel? $30,000 from your duplex or $12,000 from the bank in interest?
The money from the duplex.
There you go. See, it wasn't
Mhm.
hard. That
Yeah.
push will be on the exam. So I expect all of you will.
Mhm.
All right. So okay, that's simple. But wait, it gets better, because maybe that duplex goes up in value over a few years. And you know, in North America, holy smokes, property has been going up, but it can go down too. But over many years, in a place like where I live in Ottawa, you know, real estate's been going up 3 or 4% a year. So recently it's been 20% a year, but that's not sustainable. So let's say it goes up 4% a year. So really, Daniel, you're making $30,000 from your cash, and you're making another, if it's 4%, you're making another 20,000. Now that's not cash, but that increase in value, you get that, right? So the proper comparison between the bank and the duplex is 12,000 in interest versus $50,000 from the duplex. And that's why I said investors beat savers all the time. Okay, so that's your going in cap rate. So if you were building that duplex or buying it and you got 6%, those are the kind of numbers you would see. But if I came to you and said, hey, listen, will you sell me the duplex? Daniel, you're not likely to want to sell it at a 6% cap rate. Maybe you want to sell it at a 3% cap rate. Right? So maybe I'm a rich dude and I got more money than God, and I decide I would like to buy it. So 3% is still better than the 1 or 2% I'm getting from the bank. So I say, sure. So if you sell at a 3% cap rate, Daniel, do you know what the sale price would be? Do you have some idea in your head what it might be?
Well, twice the amount then. No.
I can see, Alex, your brother has got the brains in the family. Alex didn't get that. That was a joke, Alex.
He is got the PhD in engineering.
Hey,
you know?
you're scooping you're scooping my intro. Okay. Anyway.
So anyway, guys, we got to have a sense of humor. We're going to be together for 4 months. We better like each other. So anyway, so what Daniel said is exactly right. So he bought the damn thing, or he built the thing for 500,000, but he doesn't want to sell it for 500,000. Why would he? He'll try and get 900,000 or $1 million for it. So my buying cap rate might be 3 or 4%. Your selling cap rate might be 3 or 4%, but your going in cap rate or your buying cap rate was 6%. Do you understand? It's very, very important for you guys as both as developers and investors to understand all of this. All right. Okay, now you're all geniuses in cap rates. Okay, one more thing on the cap rate before I move on, and that is cap rates only measure cash flow. It doesn't take into account any appreciation, or if you did have a mortgage, Daniel, doesn't take into account the fact you're paying down that mortgage. That's a wealth effect as well. So we'll come back to that in a minute. So this was a fail. So Jake and I looked at it and we were scratching our head. It was a fail. And what I did, Jake, you haven't seen this before, Jake. This is new. I did another analysis where Ruben and Marilu decided to give you the site for free, you know, which would be great, except it isn't really that great. I won't go through all the details. And by the way, all of these spreadsheets will be available to you. I'll show you the link in a minute. So I want you guys to, when I put these links in the chat box, copy them right away. and download the spreadsheets and keep them in a file, back them up. And then when you want to fool around with the spreadsheets, copy them, so you version them, so you don't screw up the original spreadsheet. So keep my spreadsheets as they originally should be, and then copy them and then fool around with those. So if you screw them up, you can go back to the originals. It's a very important part of file management. So even in a free, did I get this right? No, sorry. Even in a free site, even Jake, if Marilu and Ruben gave you the site for zero money, you can see zeros here. Your cap rate comes closer to 6%, but it's still a fail. It's 5.8%. And if the selling cap rate is 4.5%, you're doing a little bit better. If you sold it or you reappraised it at 2.745 million with a 4.5% cap rate, it opens up a little more room between your cost and what the value is. Okay, but it's not really, it's not where I expected it to be. So even a free site doesn't work here. Then I tried it again with a selling cap rate of 3.5%. And one of the things that happens is the sale price is extremely sensitive to that. So if we could get a 3.5% sale cap rate, then the price that you get if you sell it, or just on an appraisal, would be $3.5 million. So it opens up more room. And the reason I put 3.5% in here is that Ruben and Marilu do have other properties in Sarnia. They are mainly a buy and hold group, as most of us are, but occasionally they do sell. And they have gotten selling cap rates as low as 2 or 2.5%. So it's very sensitive to the cap rate. So that might help a little bit, but still it's scary. And then I tried it again where, because this was Ruben's idea, not mine. He said, because I told him that this was a fail for Jake and Paula. And he said, well, what if we put this whole thing on Airbnb, or at least the floors 2 and 3? Could we do better? And so I redid this calculation, these spreadsheets, this spreadsheet, this is case 6 for Airbnb. And when I did that, the cap rate did get over 6%, and the value got over 4.5 million. Now, you notice I'm saying fair market value after completion rather than necessarily the sale price, because if you're a buy and hold person like me, the whole idea behind development is you build something, it has hopefully a good cap rate, and then you get it reappraised and at a low cap rate. So you're not selling it, but you get it reappraised. So it maybe, like we were talking about Daniel's duplex, you know, he developed it for $500,000, got it reappraised, say for $900,000. He can then put a mortgage on it, pull out a huge amount of tax-free money and do it again. Right? We all understand that. That's how, whether it's Robert Kiyosaki or Warren Buffett or Bruce Firestone or anybody on this call, that's how, you know, real estate becomes this perpetual motion machine or close to it. All right. So that's what is possible. Now, having said all of that, I wrote this out this morning, Jake, as to why you and Paula might still do this project. So even if it's only 6 or 6.2% cap rate, they might still do it. One, Ruben and Marilu are prepared to do a joint venture with Jake and Paula. Ruben and Marilu are prepared to do the financing for this project for Jake and Paula and themselves. Sarnia happens to be Jake's hometown. That's a reason why you might do a project. We already discussed the second point on my screen here. Site plan costs and time taken to do that are already priced in and done. And Jake and Paula may want to keep their construction crews busy. That's very important because you don't want to be laying off your foreman and your crews. Once you lose those guys, they're men and women, it's hard to get them back, and they're worth their weight in gold if they're any good at what they do. Not too much cash is required either, because Ruben will do most of the financing. It says here, fair market value selling cap rate could be below 3%. That would make a big difference. If they can generate 6.2% and the selling cap rate, or the appraiser will use a 3% cap rate, that makes a big difference. And the last point on the screen is that Jake and Paula are already into Airbnb. Here's some of their units now. Jake, can you remind me where these units are?
Yes. So we have 8 in London, Ontario. No, sorry, 11 in London, and we'll have 9 in Stratford, Ontario.
And are you doing a similar project in Florida?
Yes. Yeah. Yeah, we have one on the go right now. It's a single family, the one we're doing in Florida.
Okay, yeah, I thought so. So they already have expertise in Airbnb, and that's really important as well. So do you want to comment on each? I've got 4 of them. Do you want to comment on this one?
Sure. So, what do we got here? I'm trying to see which one's which.
This is
Paula does all the design. So, this is the. Trying to think. Okay, yeah. So this one's a 3-unit building in London. We short-term rental all the units, and my wife Paula did kind of a theme to each unit. It's been pretty successful. I think we're over 80% occupancy on that one.
So I want to point out a few things. Up here it says Paula got 22 reviews, all of them 5-star. That's fantastic. Paula is a super host. I don't know if you guys can see it on the screen, but my cursor's going around here. And I want to emphasize and underline what Jake said. Each unit is themed. Theming is really important in Airbnb. One of my clients has a log cabin in the middle of nowhere in Quebec. Her realtor told her she could get $900 to $1,000 a month for the place. It's beautiful, a log cabin. It's a little 1-bedroom log cabin. She themed it as a romantic getaway. It's called Cabin Faubert. She themed it as a romantic getaway. Leave the kids at home. She put lots of board games in there, you know, like what do you call those? She's got the hot tub and the music and the bottle of wine, nice movies. Not those kind of movies, nice movies. She themed it as a romantic getaway. She makes between $5,000 and $6,000 a month. That for a single lady with 1 child to bring up, a 10-year-old girl, that's a big difference. That's a life-changing situation for her. And now she's doing some more. And I've been coaching her for a while. She's very successful with it. And theming is important. All right, so that's the retro unit. Jake, this one is the modern historic unit.
Yeah, that one's actually in the same building. So in that building, there's one's a 2-bedroom plus den, and then the other 2 units. This one here is a 1-bedroom, as well as the retro one.
And you can see Paula really screwed up here. She got a 4.96 rating instead of 5.
Yeah,
that's amazing. And this one here is what do we call it? Cheery 2-bed.
Yep, that's a 2-bed unit. So same building again, but just kind of like it allows, like for Paula, I know it allows her to be creative. Like you wouldn't necessarily maybe do this on a house that you're looking to sell. It's a little bit not mainstream, right? But it's fun and people seem to enjoy it, and she gets a lot of good feedback on it.
Well, fabulous reviews, and like I said, she's a super host. What would she get for something like this? A 2-bedroom in London?
That one is, I think she took a course and like plays with the prices, but I think probably on average is around 175 a night, and the other ones are around 130, 140.
So this one's 175, and she's about 80% occupied. 80%. So it's about 24 nights. 24 nights times, did you say 180 or 175?
Yeah, 175, 180.
Yeah, so that's $4,200 a month for a 2-bedroom unit in London, Ontario.
Mm-hmm. Yeah, so market on that would be, like for long-term rent, would be 2,100 maybe, between 2,000.
Basically doubling it.
Double that, yeah.
Well, in the case of Cabin Faubert, she went from $900 to $1,000 for a 1-bedroom cabin to $5,000 or $6,000. That's incredible. And the worse the weather gets for her, Carrie Ann, the worse the weather gets, the more booked up she gets. I've never seen an Airbnb like that before. Hers, usually, in the good weather, you're always busy, but in the bad weather, maybe not so much. In her case, Quebec has some really awful wet weather, but the worse the weather gets, people just say, I'm leaving the kids at home. Honey, get in the car. And then this one is a mid-century in the burbs. Oh, mid-century in the burbs.
Yeah, so this one's it's actually in the same neighborhood we live in London. This is our first kind of trial at it. We didn't know how much traction it would get, because it kind of is, I wouldn't say in the middle of nowhere, but like northeast corner of the city. but it's been really popular. This one gets over 80% as well, and it's a basement unit in a duplex.
Wow, that's fantastic. Oh, it's beautiful.
Thank
All
you.
right. So I think that Jake and Paula can probably purchase their 50% in this project for 155 grand, and it might be worth doing. Now, something else I wanted to show you here, and we're not far away, I don't think, from your introductions. So stand by for some introductions. Yeah, we're getting there. I want to show you something down here. This equation. And now we've got a PhD, Daniel, in engineering of some sort. When does 1 + 1 = 3? Or when does 1 = 2?
You have me stumped.
I'm glad. So I'm going to tell you something. This is relevant to a lot of different fields of endeavor, and Airbnb is one of them. But I'm going to go back in time. I owned a Terrace Corporate Centers Limited, which was the largest mini office provider in Eastern Ontario. Mini offices back in the 80s, 90s, and early 2000s was a pretty hot thing. Today, you don't call them mini offices anymore. You call them co-working spaces, but it's kind of the same deal. So I own Terrace Corporate Centers Limited. And we had the parent company, Terrace Investments Limited, which was the parent company of the Ottawa Senators, was basically a real estate development company. And we owned a I don't know, 26-story building downtown. And we owned some office buildings in the burbs. And we had, I think, 120 mini offices, furnished offices, ready to go, with the secretarial services, reception services, meeting rooms, back in the day, fax machines, which was really, the height of technology back then. We had 120 downtown and 44 in the West End of Ottawa. So we had 164 mini offices. And we had an occupancy rate even better than your Airbnb, Jake. We had occupancy rates between 92 and 96%, and occasionally we'd go over 100%. Now, how the heck do you go over 100%? Well, there was so much demand for co-working space that we would have little library kiosks literally lining the hallways where people could sort of, remember those little tiny kiosks you saw at the library? I guess people don't go to the library anymore, but they used to. And we had those lining up the hallways, and people would be working there waiting for an office to free up. So sometimes we were at 102, 103, 104% occupancy. So it was a very successful business. But I went to finance or refinance those buildings because I was pulling the money out to put into the NHL team. And the problem with an NHL team is money goes in, it just never comes out. Right, so it's a one-way ticket for your dollars. You can see the dollars marching, across your eyes as you go to sleep into a black hole. So anyway, I got into a dispute with the Royal Bank of Canada because bad news for everybody as real estate developers. The lenders are the bosses mostly, and they appoint the appraisers. You pay for the appraisal, but their first loyalty is to the Royal Bank of Canada or to, the Toronto Dominion or to, I don't know, Bank of America, whatever. Their first loyalty is to the lender, not to you. They may say, oh yes, you pay me, but I'm loyal to you. That is not true. Okay, that is not true. Their first loyalty is to the lender, and it's obvious why. Royal Bank of Canada will give an appraiser perhaps several hundred appraisals to do in a year. You might only give him or her 3 or 4, right? So who do you pay attention to more, the bank or the lender or to Bruce Firestone? Well, it's the Royal Bank. So the Royal Bank's appraiser and the Royal Bank of Canada refused to recognize any of the revenues we were generating from these co-working spaces. And this would be true of Airbnb. I just went through this with an appraiser who told me, oh, no, we're not going to include any Airbnb revenues in, I've got a mixed use building with Airbnbs in it. They're doing incredibly well. Oh, no, we can't take any of that into account in your appraisal, which makes over $1 million in difference in my appraised value. you can imagine I was ready to hang myself last week. I'm still here though. So what happened was, this argument goes back more than 20 years, and it goes back to last week as well. And you're going to face it as well. So your appraiser is going to say, I'm not taking into account any business income from Airbnb, or in the case of mini storage, I'm not going to take into account any income from mini storage, or mini offices or co-working spaces, because those are short-term leases. We can't count on them. And what I said to the appraiser and Royal Bank of Canada is, I said, hold on a second here. You're on the wrong track. Think about those 164 mini offices. I've been running this business for a long time. 92, 94% occupancy, sometimes over 100%. If I have 164 mini offices and one client leaves, I've gone from 164 leased to 163. No big deal. Even if 5 of them leave, I've gone from 164 to 159. No big deal. If I have that same space, those 2 floors downtown at Heritage Place and the 1 floor in the Royal Bank Pavilion, was actually called the Royal Bank Pavilion in Bell's Corners. If I have those leased to big companies like Nortel, if you remember Nortel, and they go out of business as they did, you've gone from 100% occupancy of those floors to 0. I maintain that having 164 mini offices, 164 Airbnbs, 164 mini storage units is better than having one tenant speaking for all of that. Do you understand me, guys? But I could not convince the appraiser, and I could not convince the Royal Bank of Canada. And the appraiser is the gatekeeper to the financings that I needed in order to fund the hockey team. So I did not throw myself off a bridge. And then I didn't solve the problem either. What happened was an officer of the Royal Bank solved it. And this is what he told me to do. He said, Bruce, why don't you create a subsidiary of your parent company? So Terrace Investments Limited. Create a subsidiary, which we did, called Terrace Corporate Centers Limited. And Terrace Corporate Centers Limited leases those 2 floors downtown and the 1 floor in the West End from the parent company at the fair market value rate, plus a percentage rent, right? And those are long-term leases, right? But I said, well, that's just the shell game. We're just, the P game. No, he said, trust me on this. The bank will accept those long-term leases. I said, they will. And they said, yeah. I said, you sold me. So what I did was I created this separate company. And you're not hiding this, right? I disclosed everything to the appraiser and to the bank. It's a subsidiary of the parent company. It's leasing those 3 floors on a long-term basis, in that case, 10 years, plus 2 5-year options, paying the rent, paying a percentage rent. And both the appraiser and the bank accepted that, and they included those numbers in their appraisal, and appraisals went up, and my refinancing went through successfully. So on this dispute I had last week, I went through exactly the same process where it doesn't make any sense, but I rented our Airbnb units in one of our buildings to my wife. Her name is Dawn, D-A-W-N. I rented them to Dawn at the fair market value for these suites, plus a percentage rent. And I got the appraiser to say, yeah, it's long-term lease, long-term rental. Yeah, we'll accept that. Your wife's got a good credit score. I said, great. So Daniel, why does 1 + 1 = 3 or 1 + 1 = 2? Oh, there's one last thing you need to know, which I didn't realize. The name of the bank officer who made this suggestion, his name was Wayne Kendall. I'm long since retired, no doubt. But what I didn't understand when Wayne explained it to me was, wait a second, Terrace Corporate Centers Limited, over the next 2, 3, 4, 5 years, started to develop its own bottom line. It was paying the rent and paying the percentage rent and all that, but still, we put one of my top guys in charge. His name was Greg Graham. We put him in charge of Terrace Corporate Centers Limited. We expanded that business. It became extremely profitable in its own right. Now, all of a sudden, Terrace Corporate Centers Limited could do its own financing, right? It is just a tenant, but it can do its own financing. It has its own life. It has its own financial statements. So now we had even more financing options, the real estate and the business. And so if I were doing Airbnbs, and we're doing that with my wife, she loves this idea because she's making a ton of money doing it. And she, you know, my wife likes money you can touch, feel, and spend. Nothing wrong with that. So, so what happened was, whether it's Jake and Paula doing it or Bruce and Don doing it, it works for financing, and also works because that Airbnb business will develop its own set of books, will have its own financing options. You just need 2 years of financial statements before, you know, a bank will actually accept you as a credit risk. So within 2 years, if Jake and Paula separate out their real estate from their Airbnbs, or Bruce and Don do it, that's a good thing. All right. So what you end up with is you end up with 1 + 1 makes 3. Your pie actually gets bigger. It's real. Does it make any sense, Daniel? All right, so there you go. That was enough of that. Okay, I think we're almost at the stage now where I can turn to you guys and let you do some work. Oh yeah, I got one more thing. So I'm going to put in the chat box now. There are, I got to figure out how to do that. Hang on. There are, here we go. There are 6 spreadsheets that, you know, so that's that link in the chat box. If you can just copy, you know, just grab it with your editor and put it on a, because once this call is over, the chat box will disappear. So if you could grab it out of the chat box, and it'll give you access to 6 spreadsheets in a folder, okay? And just before we do the introductions, I want to go back to my slide deck. Can you guys see my slide deck? Can you see my slide deck? Thank you, Jake. So,
Yes.
So Dan Walkna, you there? You still driving?
Yes, I'm still here.
Okay. So Dan is going to look at building a 4-plex as the project on a site that I think you already own, right, Dan?
Correct. Yeah. So currently own it. There's just one tenant in there, not really making return, and looking to enhance that into a 4-plex.
So when I heard that, I think late last week, I asked these 2 young men on the screen here, Brad Karche and Aaron Markle, to come as our guests. And they're going to talk about their 6-plex, 10-plex that and they developed a number of them. So this is really important for you, Dan. They're coming as our guests on September 14th to talk about these. They've got 6 of them under construction. So these 6-plex, 10-plex is very similar to what Ruben is doing, augmented tenancies, all that good stuff. Brad is both a tech guy and a real estate guy. He's a young genius. Aaron is the construction guy. And so Jake, I think it will be important for you and for everybody on the course as well. So here is just, these are pictures I took when I visited their projects. This is the back of the units. These are the basement units, which have a walkout condition, which means you can just walk out at grade, which is quite nice. And I'm not going to go through this because we're going to hear about them, hear from them on September 14th, but we're going to see every aspect of this. They're going to go through how they control construction costs, how they deliver their products on time and on a budget, which is a miracle these days. Brad will talk about the design and the leasing and the marketing and other things that he does. And that is September 14th. All right. So I want you to remember that particular date. Don't miss that class. I think it'll be really, really helpful to all of us, including yours truly. All right. Now it's time for these professional introductions. Okay. So I sent this to you guys early this morning. Professional introductions are really important. You know, I do some keynote speaking, less since the pandemic started. I do them on Zoom now or Microsoft Teams or whatever. But professional introductions are really important. If you're talking to an appraiser, don't assume that he or she knows who you are. Talking to a lender, talking to an investor, even talking to a tenant, tell them who you are, your name, your experience, your education, what you do for a living. Do you have a job? Do you have a side hustle? Do you have your own business? And what other people need to know about you? What are you passionate about? And today, what I'd like you to do is, if you can, is talk about those 3 things, and also what project you're going to analyze in detail. And I sent you this. This is my 140 character CV. I'm an entrepreneur, real estate broker, developer, coach, urban guru, keynote speaker, Sen's founder, novelist, blogger, peerless husband and dad. You can imagine who added the peerless husband and dad. It wasn't my wife. Who I am, Bruce M. Firestone. I'm a civil engineer from McGill. Did my engineering science degree at the University of New South Wales in Sydney. I did my PhD in urban economics at the Australian National University. And I'm a real estate investment and business coach. I'm an Ottawa Senators founder, and I'm a broker at Royal LePage. And what really motivates me is I want to change the world through real estate. I know that sounds like a poser value. That's an Australian expression. I lived in Australia for many years, but I really do. I think I can change the world, through real estate. I think augmented tenancy, when you guys are much older, and maybe not that much older, will be a real thing across the world. Help landlords rental providers make more money and help people live for free or close to it. So that's my introduction. And I'm asking for volunteers. Who wants to go first? All right, Jake.
Hey everyone, I'm Jake Taylor. Work with my wife, Paula McFarlane. We have a company called Tartan Developments. We're based in London, Ontario, and also just expanding to Southwest Florida. Like I mentioned, we're married. Our business is about 2 years old. I've been in the business full-time for about a year. We have 4 kids. Our previous work experience, we were both paramedics. I was a paramedic in Ontario for 16 years, and my wife was, I think, 13 years. Yeah, so we've done a mix of things in the real estate industry in the last 2 years. Our focus now is on new construction, single-family homes, and small-scale development. Also been working with Bruce for maybe 8 months. It's been great. I look forward to every call, and sometimes wish it was sooner. Yeah, what was the second thing on the list there, Bruce? Sorry.
Oh, I'll put it up on. Sorry, I apologize, Jake.
Yeah, it's okay.
I should have left it on the screen.
No, it's okay. I was going to make a note.
My fault. I wasn't thinking.
Yeah, so we've been at it about 2 years. I just started our new construction home company this year, and we have five homes on the go right now. That's been a challenge, to say the least. We're learning lots as we go. Also, like I mentioned, looking to do some small scale development, which we have a few sites we're working on. What other needs to know? You know what? I want to create. I love real estate. I love what we're doing. It's our passion. It's a creative outlet for us. I want to create lifelong wealth for my family and myself, and also time freedom, which we're kind of experiencing a bit now. We're able to kind of live between Florida and Ontario, which is nice. But we have young kids, and just being able to spend time with them is kind of what we're looking to do. And yeah, like Bruce said, I like all the strategies that Bruce has. I want to be able to create something that's not only enjoyed by people, but also creates a return. And yeah, I think we'll talk more about that stuff. Analyze a deal. I could say a deal we have to analyze today, but it might change when it comes time to it. But I have one site now, very similar to the sixplex that Bruce mentioned in Sarnia. It's just outside London. We own the property already. Just going through site plan and stuff like that. So we can look at that. I think the last slide that Bruce said, very similar numbers. We purchased it for a bit less, but there is some infrastructure costs. But I guess the thing with this one, I already own it, so I don't have the choice not to. But we can look at that, whether we sell the land as site plan ready or go through with the project. But yeah, that's a sixplex, which we would do basically a 12plex with. So we can look at that one, but we might have some other ones to look at as we go too.
Thank you, Jake. Excellent. How many kids do you have?
Sorry, we have 4 kids.
Yeah, I thought so. All right. Oh, that's great. I got you beat. I got 5. All right, Bob, you're next. You're simply going down the list here. So, Bob.
Okay. Hi, Bruce. I'm in my final year working with RBC as an investment and insurance advisor. I am a real estate developer, and have just putting the final touches to a real estate development called Madawaska Shores subdivision. That subdivision consists of 18 waterfront building lots and 12 inland lots. The 18 waterfront lots sold off remarkably well. It's about 30 minutes away from Canada in the area of Ottawa, and beautiful river on the Madawaska River with clean water, the second cleanest river in Ontario, as well as great recreational amenities there. Not far from the town of Arnprior, 7 minutes to the town, so it's got its services nearby. So that project went really well. The timing was excellent. I did pre-sales on it, and then eventually closed all the lots with my real estate lawyer. What I did learn is that and as Bruce mentioned, it's important to have a strong team. You have to have a good lawyer, good people to help with financing, and construction people to make sure things are done well, an engineer who's very knowledgeable and make sure that you don't get into quicksand, and a guru like Bruce to help where there's problems that you're unforeseen and can help you as well stay on track. So in my project that I'm looking to develop, I want to go ahead and work on phase 2. I have some 35 acres remaining, and so I want to work towards phase 2. I've got preliminary plans going, but I still need to polish them and make sure the project is viable. And we'll be looking for all of your input to help me make a good, viable plan. And my motto is to help people reach their dreams with real estate. And that's why I like to go forward. And it's been helpful to see so many people build their docks, get their properties out, and really enjoying the waterfront lots that were offered.
I love that motto. Can you just repeat it one more time? It's a beautiful motto.
Yeah, my motto is to help people reach their dreams with real estate.
Oh, that's fantastic. I love it. So what I'm hoping for everybody here is that when Bob presents his project, that he'll present phase 1 of the project of Madawaska Shores, as well as the new phase. And the reason for that is Madawaska Shores really summarizes in so many ways the challenges that you face. I don't care whether you're developing a subdivision in near Austin, Texas, or near Ottawa, Ontario, doesn't matter. The challenges that Bob and Dan faced when Dan Walkner faced, his son, when they did Madawaska Shores, it was incredible. But Bob went through the entire planning process, the subdivision process, I think the zoning process, all of the studies, then of course putting in roads and services, which was a 7-figure effort. So I'd like you, Bob, if you don't mind, to put together a slide deck. If you need help, I'll help you with it. That talks about all the stuff that you did, or as much of it as you feel comfortable, disclosing to the group. Everything that you disclose is held confidential. We're recording this. It'll go on YouTube for everybody, but it's unlisted. The only people who will have it will be the people on this course. So, I hope you'll do that. And then in terms of this new phase that Bob is looking at, there are some really interesting ideas that Bob has come up with, and he'll discuss them in detail as we go along. A land condo, some kind of some kind of land leases or sales. I mean, there's all kinds of things that could be done with this next phase that might be very interesting, both to the people who are going to live there, but also for Bob and his family. I've done some work with Parkbridge, which is the largest provider of cottage parks in Canada, and I think one of the largest in the States as well. They went from 3 or 4 projects 20 or 25 years ago to over 120 today. And what they do is they divide up their land into sites which they lease. They land lease them. They sell modular homes, which they put on those sites. And Parkbridge basically has committed monthly recurring revenues. The problem with being a land developer, which Bob already knows, is that once you your 30 lots or whatever, they're gone for all eternity. Whereas Park Bridge's model is a little bit different. You retain ownership and you land lease it. From the point of view of the buyer, it's much less expensive because you don't have to pay, $300,000 or $200,000, whatever it is for the lot. So I'm hoping, Bob, that you'll be able to, expand your reach of options and share that with us.
Okay.
All right. Who's next on our list? Okay, Jessica.
Hi, everyone. Can you hear me well?
Yeah, perfect.
Hi, my name is Jessica. So I have a few degrees. I'm going to follow the structure that you provide. I have a few degrees. So I studied social work at university and did a minor in public administration. And then I did a master's in public administration. I recently completed the Canadian Securities course in February 2022, so just a few months ago. And I'm still in the process to become an exempt market dealer with a securities firm. So I work full-time as a strategic policy analyst for the federal government. I'm currently on vacation, and so now you know my side hustle. And in terms of project, I have really small-scale real estate, and I did a legal secondary suite project, and I did the house hack with that one. So I lived in it, converted it, moved in the basement. And then 1 year after, that was in 2018, 1 year after 2019, I bought the same model, same type of property, just one street over. And this time I pulled money from family members. So I call it a joint venture, but the more I'm getting into securities, the more I'm realizing that, pulling money from different people is getting into syndication, and hence the reason why I later got the Canadian Securities degree. So a small scale with pulling money from family members. And I call them my twin properties just because it's the same type. They're just one street over. We do maintenance all together. We kind of wrap different services together. For example, bundles for snow removal, different things. And then I also manage some small scale family assets in Ottawa. So that one house, and others in the Greater Montreal area. So in Laval, if you're familiar. So mostly leasing, maintenance, giving contractors work orders, booking stuff. And so I guess I have 4 years of experience in the field. I started in 2018 with my first property that I mentioned that I converted. Before that, I read Rich Dad Poor Dad when I was 21, and I just got to buy my first property in 2018. So I'll start counting when I bought my first property. So 4 years in. Obviously, I was on the road. 2018 first property, 2019 second property. I leased it on December 2019. Our tenants moved in February 1st, 2020, and we all know what happened in March. And this is when I did the securities degree during those 2 years. And so far, my tenants or our tenants have been international students in the basement, Syrian refugees for the one in Laval, emergency housing tenants, so people who are living in shelters. Most of my tenants in my property are supported by the city, so I do get subsidies, and just regular families.
Did we lose Karina? Did we lose Jessica?
Yeah.
Oh, rats. All right, well, we'll wait for Jessica to come back. Can everybody hear me okay? Bob, can you hear me all right?
Yes, no problem, Bruce. You're live.
Good, good. Well, we'll wait for Jessica to return. She was doing a great job. She was on a roll. Karina, would you do an introduction for yourself, please?
Sure, yes. Thank you, Bruce. Hello, everyone. I'm very excited to be here. Number one, thank you, Bruce, for running this. I couldn't wait. I woke up this morning super excited. Nice to meet everyone. I have my husband here, Dave, and I'll let him introduce himself later. But my name is Karina, and I am a local developer here in Ottawa, so very close to Bruce. I've been, well, for education-wise, I don't even, so I went to Carleton, I went to Ottawa U. I did nothing with my education. So I did very well in the corporate world, but I felt very unhappy and literally felt sick to my stomach. So I love real estate. I got my first property in 2009. I absolutely love that. experience, and I knew I wanted to do more in real estate. So I went in, learned as much as I could. Met a girl who said I developed semis with my husband. And I was like, she was the first one to ever tell me that, because everybody else was doing flips and burrs and all that, you know, SDU conversions and all that. And I was like, how do you do that? And she says, just look at zoning and you'll be able to know where you can. And I was like, what's zoning? Like, what is that? And I'm the crazy one. I have a really high like risk tolerance. I'm kind of like, I go all in. Not to say that that's good, but I somehow managed to make my husband follow me, and he's just probably as crazy as I am. And I told him, you know what, like I had read an article where the city said with the new light rail system, the city wants or is supportive of intensification around transit. And so I was learning about zoning, and then I read about intensification, and I read about transit, and I was like, that's it. That's what we're gonna do. And we had just bought our property, and Dave was like, how are we gonna do that? We just spent all our money buying our house. We don't have any money right now. And I was like, I don't know, but we're just gonna figure it out. And we did. We bought our first property, you know, like within, like you could throw a rock to transit, double lot with a little crappy bungalow on it. Our tenant loved it because it was huge and he loved to fix his cars and all that. And we went through the approvals, and then somebody said, I would totally buy that from you, because at the time I just couldn't think like, you know, building it out felt like a big endeavor for us. So when he said, yeah, I'll buy it from you, I was like, great, I will sell it to you. And we made $250,000. And that for me was like another light bulb. I was like, I could do this all day long. I loved it. I loved working with professionals. So my background was project management. I understood projects, I understood budgets, timelines. That was my thing. So I'm like, I'm working with professionals, so architects, engineers that have a stamp to their name. These guys are way smarter than I am, and I get to work with phenomenal people all day long. I'm all in, like, and that's what I did. And my husband is so amazing because he's super supportive. Quit my job. I've been doing this now for, I guess officially like 100% as a living since 2019, although I was doing it before that on the side. Now we've done, you know, multiple things. We've done some severances, we've done some zoning amendments. We've done everything from like a sixplex to a 45 unit apartment building.
Wow.
We've got it rezoned. One of my projects that I just picked up right now, we're going to be doing a mixed commercial residential, about 10 stories apartment building. But the one that I'm really excited to bring forward is our very first subdivision. So very similar to Bob, what you were saying really intrigued me a lot, because we are in Calabogie, Ontario. I had met Paul Murphy out in Calabogie. I know Paul, he's amazing. I know about his Barrett Chute development. I loved it. And when a wholesaler said to me, Karina, I know you're a builder, like, are you interested in Calabogie? I was like, I love Calabogie. If you guys don't know Calabogie, it's like about an hour or so from Ottawa on the west. And we're not waterfront like yours, Bob, but we're more water view. That's what I like to say, water view. And we've designed it so that it's a typical kind of like your typical subdivision, 1 acre lots. However, as part of this course, I'm super excited to learn about all of the ideas that you have, Bruce, because I feel like there's a lot of potential in here to do a lot more. You know, I was talking with Paul Murphy, and I asked him, Paul, like, you've been here forever, like doing all of this cool real estate stuff. What do you think is missing in Calabogie? And he was like, we need more of you guys to bring like amenities, to bring like new life, to bring what do you call, Bruce, animation, you know, like there's gotta be more. Yes.
So one of the, Karina, you and I are on the same wavelength, and and one of the things that I've talked to, I coach Paul Murphy as well, and he's a very special individual. He's a very special, and one of the things that both he and I have identified as a missing element in Calabogie. I'm not saying you should do it, but we both identified it as a niche that's not is absent, is a tiny house town.
Mm-hmm.
And I'm not saying you should do it, but it's definitely a niche product. And he has been experimenting, as you know, with cabinscape.com. Are you familiar with Cabinscape?
Yeah, I've heard of it.
Yeah. So for those of you who don't know it, I'll put it in the chat box, and I'd strongly advise you to have a look at it. It's in the chat box now, Karina, and you too, Dave. The ROI for the two young people, it's a husband and wife team who started Cabinscape, is off the charts. And I'm not saying you should do it, but maybe part of your subdivision, a separate part, could be along the lines of Cabinscape in a tiny house town. The demand is off the charts. The motto of the tiny house movement is less house, more life.
Mm-hmm.
And I'm working on one now for myself and my family, and we can talk more about it. It's just an option for you.
Okay.
All right, Karina, what is your motto, your tagline? What drives you? What's your passion?
So as part of my journey, I got a lot of people ask me to coach them. So I've kind of become a coach in the land development space. So I do have students and mentees that I coach. And I'm really big on creating beautiful spaces that people can thrive in, and I feel like we have a social responsibility, and
Yeah.
what great power we have as land developers to be able to pass that on to others. And, I'm really big on people get into real estate because they want to create wealth. And I'm really big on money. Like I will tell everybody, I love money. I love it. And I think everyone should make it. But also I believe in why not create lots of money and have fun, but also have create beautiful spaces where people can thrive. So be very socially responsible. My motto is about
I love that. I love it.
Thank you.
Great spaces where people can thrive. Another thing that Bob and I have talked about for his next phase that might be relevant to you in Calabogie is to create beautiful spaces, as you talked about, with places for example, backyard workshops where they can sort of live and work. I've had a lot of success with that. I've got some properties that I own that have, for example, I have a triplex with a workshop at almost 800 square feet in the backyard. And a young woman I rent to with 3 kids, she has her yoga practice in that. So her commute to work is from her apartment in the triplex that she rents from me, and then she rents the workshop and she runs her yoga studio. Karina, she went from making $37,000 a year as a yoga instructor working for other people to making $115,000 a year from her running her own practice in the backyard of one of my buildings.
That's exciting.
It's incredible. All right, Daniel, over to you.
Okay, hi everybody. So I'm Daniel DiNardo, originally from Ottawa, and I have a Bachelor of Computer Engineering from the University of Ottawa. I did a Master of Systems in Computer Engineering at Carleton University, and later on my life brought me to Luxembourg, where I did a PhD. Never really planned to do that, more of a just kind of a hobby thing that emerged, made some connections with professors, and there I was. So I did start my software career in Ottawa. Originally, well, one of the first big jobs was at Spire Communications. I didn't mention this because, funnily enough, is one of the buildings opposite the hockey arena. So I was staring at the hockey arena every day for a few years. Maybe when Bruce still owned it. I don't remember when you got rid of that organization.
2004.
2000. Yeah, so I was there while you owned it at the beginning. So I spent several years there just learning basically software engineering, programming, putting it to practice. So I did this master's. I was interested in software quality. Don't mind the bells. I'm on vacation in Dubrovnik right now. You might hear some bells behind me. Anyway, I went to Cognos eventually in Ottawa, where I led some efforts in, having good software practice testing, and later became IBM. But as I mentioned, I eventually did go to Europe to do a PhD, which brought me to Luxembourg for 4 years for that program. And I spent a couple of years more. So after this, I started a software consulting company, just a company of one right now. And I worked at some places. I worked in Huawei Paris for a bit. And then currently I actually work at a place called Ripe NCC out of Amsterdam. And they're managing the computer internet addresses of Europe, basically.
Wow.
Every region, continent has their own equivalent organization. So if you have a web page, basically these guys have to organize addresses and so on. So that's where I'm working right now, mostly remotely. I'm living with my fiance in Bucharest at the moment. So just traveling around quite a bit, making it back to Ottawa a couple times a year. So my passions include photography and travel, I guess, obviously. And then what motivates me in this course? Well, my brother Alex was, I guess, the main motivator for me joining this. And we have a couple of the real estate projects to discuss. I'm interested in, I guess, creating a nice long-term revenue stream with responsible, nice development to complement neighborhoods. I'm very much a novice in this field. So I do have some experience as a landlord. I had a condo in Ottawa, and having read some of the materials before the course and with Bruce going over the spreadsheet, I'm like, yeah, condos are no good because you're stuck with these the big fees. So I got to get rid of that damn thing. The fees are quite high. So that bites into that 6%. I don't even know if it's possible. So that's a good kick to me to probably think about that investment. But this said, my brother and I are fortunate enough. We had parents, or we still have our father, who has one duplex on a busier street of Ottawa that could be probably converted into I'm assuming maybe a sixplex. So that could be an interesting project to look at. I'll let my brother discuss another interesting project we have, but that one comes to mind, I think, maybe as a quicker win in terms of just kind of getting that revenue stream or cutting it up, let's say, sooner and getting it going sooner. So as a novice, my concern, I'll just state upfront, is I don't know much about, well, the game as a whole, especially, construction and so on. I don't know how to procure these folks, because we might discuss our big ideas and so on, but I'm very much concerned. Of course, we have to actually get people to build for us and so on. So I'd be definitely interested in hearing insights on that. And of course, as a side note, I'll also mention, in general, I'm worried about landlord rights in Ontario if we do retain properties and so on. So I know what did they cap? Inflation's what, 6, 7, 8% now, and the rental increase for next year is 2.5. So that's also kind of discouraging from a landlord perspective, but I'll leave it at that. So looking forward to learning a lot about development in this course.
Daniel, that was an excellent introduction. Thank you for that. I was the vice chair of CIRA, the Canadian Internet Registry Authority, when we introduced the .ca domain. Mm-hmm. I really enjoyed my work. I've sort of straddled technology and real estate too. One of the things I found is there are an awful lot of tech guys who really like real estate. Let's say, Daniel, we actually went out, you, your brother, and me, we went out and bought that $500,000 duplex, that imaginary duplex we talked about earlier. And for some reason, the three of us didn't get along. The two brothers maybe get along, but, Prof Bruce, you want to get rid of me. So let's say you had to sell it. Well, we would probably sell it for $500,000 or maybe a little bit more. But if we started a tech company for $500,000, the three of us, and it didn't work out, it wasn't successful, we might get, $5,000 or $10,000 back for our intellectual property, but that would be about it. So a lot of people have come to real estate from technology. I put about 2,500 people through the courses that I teach and through the coaching practice in 9 years. And probably a third of those, maybe even a little bit more, maybe 40% were from the technology industry. And they like real estate because it's something that, there's downside. I mean, you can lose money in it, but you can't lose as much money as you can in technology. You can also you can't get the same home runs either. But, for every Facebook and every, Google out there, there's probably a couple of million that don't work. Certainly not at that scale. So I think that's a natural transition. The other thing that I think happens in technology is that by the time you're 40, you're considered old in technology, and people are saying, oh, look at that Firestone guy, he's 40 now. I'm 70, but he's 40, let's push him out the door. In China, they think you're old at 30. So a lot of technology people, in their 30s and 40s have come to real estate. Alex, tell us about yourself.
Yeah, hi, Bruce. There was a quick request from someone who has to leave, though, on an appointment. I don't know.
Yeah, that's me, Bruce. Yeah.
Is that Dave? You got to go?
Yeah, Bruce, if you wouldn't mind if I jumped in, I'm sorry. I'm actually in Belleville. My brother's in the hospital. I have to go see him. So I just wanted to, but I wanted to make sure I got on the call and met everybody.
Well, so, I thought Karina did a beautiful job, giving you props for backing her up, and my wife does that for me too. I don't know if I deserve it.
Wow, I don't know, tough act to follow there. So yeah, my name is Dave Wallace, and I am just newly retired. I was in the IT for 18 years. I worked at NAV Canada as a hardware software integration engineer on air traffic control systems around the world. So my background is actually in human kinesiology. I went to Ottawa U, did human kin after playing sports for 15 years. Went in the armed forces as a military engineer. So combat engineer, I'm a veteran, 10 years.
Wow.
After coming out, I went right into IT I have a computer information systems and a computer programming degree. So a lot of my work was with computer automated strips systems for ATCs to control aircraft and for aircraft movement. During my time in the military, I spent a lot of time with engineering, learning how to build. Actually, my background is demolitions and explosives. But a lot of that was, we were also building bridges, building decks, building structures for humanitarian relief as well. Some of the big things we did was the flood, the big snowstorm, the big ice storm in Ontario. Yeah. So I went through all of that. That only increased my my background in this type of which helped me into our housing, and this directly translates into what I'm doing now. So now I am the I'll say the president of WPM Ottawa. What that is that's my my new career now that we've retired from. Now that Karina and I have retired ourselves from the working job, JOB. That's what we do now. I manage our projects. A lot of the time with the construction background, I do a lot of the contracting, the procurement, the execution of the projects, moving them forward. So Karina gets them and I make them make money. And that's pretty much how we work our projects. For this particular my project, I think we're going to move. I want to expand a little bit on, maybe I'll let Karina do the Calabogie one. We have other projects I'd like to bring up. I'm just not 100% sure if I want to do one of our newer buildings or what we can do with one of our older buildings, but it's going to be a building, I would imagine.
Can I interrupt for a second, Dave?
Yeah.
I hope you do another project. Let Karina do one, Calabogie's project, but you should do another one. And one of the things I've been working on is, this augmented tenancy thing that I talked about.
That's perfect.
I've got a developer in Emblem, a developer in White Rock, BC, and a couple of developers, one in Austin and another one in North Carolina, who are doing, Dave, do we lose you? Who are doing 30 story, 20 story, 30 story, 10, 12 story buildings, augmented tenancy all the way up, at least until they get to the penthouse. The penthouse is different, but they do this, and they have been able to move their cap rates from 5.5 to 6.5 on a new build, which is still pretty good, up to 9, 10, 11%. It has made a huge difference. So I'm hoping you'll do one of those projects, because we can really, I think we can do some really great stuff there.
I'm really happy to hear you say that, Bruce, because Karina and I have been thinking about alternatives to just the traditional building and what we can do. We're putting in EV spots for the new shared autos,
No,
you know,
no,
where you
trust me
have,
on this, there's all kinds
right?
of things that you can do. So what my
Yeah.
clients have been doing is they've been doing the augmented tenancy thing through much of their building. They've also been introducing into the building workshop spaces so people have a live-work condition. All of
Yeah.
these things have tended to move their ROI up, the tenant churn rate down. So Dave, your job after you visit your brother in the hospital, when you have time, send me an email with your thoughts on this project. And
Yeah.
you know, that would and if you don't mind, put in the email to me, White Rock, BC, because
Okay.
there's a project there I gotta show you, and then there's a project in Embrum I've got to show you that is really extraordinary, where the cap rates have they haven't doubled, but they've almost doubled, and that the difference for you, Karina likes money. Who doesn't? I think it's a good thing. You know, I think we can really work on something really spectacular for you.
Oh, okay, great. That's great. I'm actually
Yeah.
really looking forward to this.
All right. And listen,
So-
we'll let you go because we'll wish you the best of luck to your brother. Okay.
All right. Thank you very much, guys. And we'll talk to you guys later.
Talk to you soon. Don't forget an
All right.
email. You owe me an email.
I will get that to you. All right. Thanks.
good.
All right. Bye.
So Alex, thank you very much for pointing that out. I
No.
wanted to get him going because obviously he's got an important engagement.
Yeah, absolutely. Yeah.
Thank you for doing it, Alex.
No worries. My name is Alex DiNardo. I'm Dan's older brother, father of two. My daughter Eva is 16 and my son Leo is 10. Ottawa born and raised. My education, you'll find this interesting. I got a graduate from Carleton School of Architecture, and the professor was my professor back when I was in my 20s. So that's a few years back now. That's when I got to know Bruce. I ran a great, I forget what kind of course it was. It was a development course, but there was a special credit code for it or something. It was like
Yeah, I think there was. Yeah.
professional elective, I think they called it, or something like that at the time in school. But it was definitely one of the most interesting and different courses from the rest of the design curriculum, right? After school, I actually have another degree from University of Ottawa in computer science as well, and that's because I transitioned into high tech once I graduated, and worked for quite some large companies. I worked for Nokia, I worked for Adobe, Corel. I currently work for TELUS Health, so a lot of people don't even know TELUS Health exists, but it is, and it's actually becoming a very large company. Hey, I didn't even know that TELUS Agriculture exists. But apparently it's becoming a very large subsidiary as well. So, which is quite interesting because healthcare, of course, is another professional area in massive transition in this country as the status quo kind of collapses, right? So, what I'm interested in professionally is my brother and I purchased 2288 Fox Crescent, and the reason. Bruce would wave his finger at me because certainly it does not meet the cap rate. It was quite expensive.
I remember that.
But it's next to our family's property, right? It's next to my dad's house on 2286 as well. So that was the prime motivator, and so we paid like basically 50% down in cash, and it's mortgaged at a low fixed rate, which is fine. And it has a tenant right now. So, but I'm really looking to leverage the knowledge of the group and Bruce in terms of building on it, but not just your average, like slap two big super houses that cover 90% of the landscape footprint. I actually really dislike those. I think they're mostly unattractive. I think they're probably costly to maintain. I would like to do something, maybe more environmental. There was like some Japanese styling, something more environmentally conscious in terms of low monthly cost for heating and so on. Kind of take that approach because I think a lot of people are open to that sort of technology these days, right? In terms of the benefit of saving money on. But anyway, I'd like to see what we could squeeze onto this irregular property, right? Which is about 126 by 84 wide, and then carry on from there. I like it because it's close to LRT, 8-minute walk, right? It's going to be another 8-minute walk to the new Canadian Tire at Carlingwood. So I think the location is excellent. That was another reason why we really wanted to work in that area. So that really is, I suppose, our passion. My passion really is sort of like a familiar, family obligation to take what Dad had bought and built up, and then but take to the next step in terms of actually getting some revenue returning projects going on these existing properties.
So Alex, it'll be very challenging and interesting to see if we can figure out, because I know the project, it's challenging. It'd be challenging to see if we can figure out something that satisfies both the ROI and the green initiative, right? And I don't have to tell you about things like Wallapeenies, if you know what that is. These are in the ground greenhouses. I don't have to tell you about things like Green for Real. There was a program that Canada ran when I think there was a conservative prime minister, Stephen Harper, I think was prime minister. It was called the 1 Ton Challenge. Do you remember that? The 1 Ton Challenge?
It rings a bell.
It rings a bell.
Yeah.
So when I heard that, I just saw a commercial on TV from the government of Canada, take the 1 Ton Challenge. And I said, geez, I'm going to take that challenge. And the front man on that was a comedian by the name of Rick Mercer. So Rick Mercer shows up on the TV and says, listen, we're going to teach Canadians how to save 1 ton of CO2 a year. I thought, well, I'll take that challenge. How the heck am I going to do that? So I went on the 1 Ton Challenge Canada website and I read through the whole damn thing. It was a few hundred pages, I think, at least 100 anyway. And the only thing I found on the 1 Ton Challenge was that when your children are brushing their teeth, turn off the hot water. Now that should save a few micrograms of CO2 a year. And it was called greenwashing, if you know the term greenwashing. It's like whitewashing, only it's greenwashing. In other words, you're trying to make the government of Canada look like they're trying to do something, but they were doing nothing. So I created my own 1 Ton Challenge. I created a spreadsheet, it's still on the internet somewhere, which showed if you move closer to work, depending on the type of car you drive, if you move 20 kilometers closer to work and you're driving a car, for a small Ford Fiesta, you save about 1.2 tons of CO2 a year. And if you have like a Jaguar XKE or something like that, you save like 7 tons of CO2 a year. So, a typical engineer like Daniel and yourself and me and others on the call, that's what I did. So it'll be very interesting to see if we can come up with something that's green for real, as opposed to greenwashing, and still provides an ROI for you and your brother and your family. That's a great challenge. I look forward to that.
Yeah, I have a very open mind on it. I'm not one of the fear chasers, though. I mean, obviously it's a good spin. I'm not a fundamentalist, absolutely not.
But there's
personally
definitely things that work. For example, for many years, and we got to be careful because we're running out of time. But for many years, solar hot water was not legal in many places. Solar hot water, nothing is more simple to do. And even in a very cold Northern Shelf town like Ottawa, solar hot water actually has a decent ROI. And it was illegal. The building code wouldn't permit it. So there's all kinds of things that we can actually do, even in a cold place like Ottawa. And one of the things that's really important, I said it to Karina, and I'm saying it to you as well, is if we could create on this property, perhaps a live-work condition, that is huge. Karina, that yoga, that lady who runs her yoga studio in the backyard of one of our properties, her name is Maya. We also put a percentage rent in there. So she pays, I think, a 4% percentage rent. So her revenues are 115 or 120,000. We get, as landlords or rental providers, we get 4% of that. Right. So, Alex, there may be some really cool things that we can do. I don't know what they are, but we'll figure it out. I look forward to it. Okay.
Yeah, I look forward to it. Yeah.
All right. We got two more to go. So, Dan, you're second last, and Jessica, we're going to come back to you because I know we lost you there. So, Dan, see what you can do now.
Yes. Hi. Good afternoon, everyone. My name is Dan Walkna. I'm from born, raised in Ottawa, and graduated from the University of Ottawa. And, Ottawa's home. I'm really happy that Bruce brought the Senators back there, and that's still my team and my passion there. I recently got married in this past October, so coming up to our 1-year anniversary. And my wife and I are going to be expecting our first child in early December.
Wow, that's news.
Yeah, so that's going to be some busy, exciting times. Thank you.
This is really exciting.
Yeah, so I've started with Bruce. We did our first project on Pebble about 6 years ago and had some great success. I want to say we were around the 10, 11% cap rate.
Wow.
And that's what really got me into real estate and really, seeing that success and wanted to do more of that. My wife and I, we now have 7 doors. And one of the projects that we're looking at doing is the one that we mentioned where it's on a lot about 40 by 80, 40 by 100. And looking just to switch that. It's a small, like old war bungalow and convert that maybe into a 4-plex or see what, the maximize we can get for that lot size in that area. But it's in Carlingwood area, right off Fisher, if you're familiar with Ottawa. And they're going to be building the new hospital not too far. So
Oh my gosh.
We'll have some good
Wow.
updates there. And yeah, so I've been doing this for a little bit now. I've worked for Sherwin-Williams Paints, been with them for, I'm currently a business development rep for them. And, hopefully one day I can continue to grow the real estate portfolio and make that my full-time career.
It's fantastic. I'm so happy about the baby, and it's the best thing I ever did was have 5 kids, and now a bunch of grandkids, and I'm really excited for you. Also excited for the project. Since we're going to be studying at least 2 or 3 6-plex, 10-plex, whatever. That's very relevant. And then, as you know, we're going to have Brad Cartier and Aaron Merkel on this call on September 14th, and it's interesting because Jake and I weren't able to solve this problem of the Sarnia building. We need more work on that, right, Jake? But Dan, on the 6-plexes, 6-plex, 10-plexes that Brad and Aaron are building in Rockland, there's 6 of them now. Their cap rates are coming in around where you are on Pebble. And just so everybody knows on the call, Pebble was the very first building that Dan bought. It was a high ranch bungalow, I guess, and it was a bungalow. And he rented the ground floor to a tenants, and then he developed really with his dad's help a little bit. He rented or developed a lower level rental unit. I think it was a 2-bedroom, if I recall.
Yeah, 2-bedroom and then a 3-bedroom on the main level.
Yeah, so it was a wonderful project. And imagine getting Jake, imagine getting an 11% cap rate on a duplex. That's really good. It just shows how careful both Dan and Bob are on the cost side. I know Bob is very careful and cautious, rightly so, on the cost side of his projects, and Dan is a chip off the old block, I guess you'd say. So I really think this is going to be a great for us to develop that. And thank you very much, Karina, for that nice comment. Jessica, 1 more minute to you so you can finish off, because I know we lost you there for a little bit.
Sure. Can you hear me?
Perfect.
Yes. Switch to my phone, so hopefully it's better. I don't know where it stopped, but I'll just say that my focus will probably be ESG. I think we already talked about green building, etc. So this is something that I will be looking into incorporating in my deals. So passion and goals, social work, helping individual and communities. I'm single with no kids, so building intergenerational wealth. So one day when I have a partner and kids, there is some stuff are already set up and we can go for a nice vacation right off the bat. And in terms of animation, I'm looking for residential infill. And maybe some community setup. I know, Bruce, you presented in other venues some animation patterns or animation scheme where you have accelerators built in. So I'm thinking more of having NGOs, retail, mixed use, social housing in some of the buildings. And this is it. I'll give you some more, like some ping later individually on what I'm trying to do and trying to line me up. But I'm pretty new to development in general. I watched the 45-minute video, one of the first one for the introductory call or introductory video, and I'm looking forward to hear about the Zibby, the $5 million, I don't know, deal. Yeah. Produce a park. It's not something that I think I'll do right now or within the course, but later on, I'm really interested to see how that works. free land, you did talk about it today, but this is really interesting to me. Infill, this is what I want to do. Agricultural land, I think with everything that's happening with the price of wheat and different commodities, knowing how to deal with agricultural land and maybe keeping some part of the land in production will be something interesting. Modular home, tree houses, and colonnade Bridgeport. When you mentioned that example in the video, Bruce, that really spoke to me in terms of taking a lift in every step. And like, you know, we'll be looking forward to finance my deal through private placement. So that's it.
That was good. So Jessica, you know, since you have your exempt market dealer license, or you soon will have it, I think you're going to be one of, you'll be on my, you know, speed dial, because one of the things that Jessica and I talked about is there is a need for a fund in Canada. There are funds in the States that do it, but none that I know of in Canada that do it, that provide not only mortgage financing, construction financing, but also provide equity. And one of the things that Jessica is going to work on is a fund that in fact could do that. And I think that would be something really special. So what it means is that the fund is providing, you know, lending, but it's also providing money that goes towards ownership. And that is very good for the fund. You know, we have private equity firms in the States like Blackstone Group that do that. They provide loans and organize loans to projects, but they also put in money that becomes equity, so that the fund itself has growth, not just because they make some interest in fees, but also they have a share in the growth of real estate and the value that it creates. All right, so that's, Jessica and I have talked about that. And Jessica, if you can get to the next level on that, you will be so busy as an exempt mark dealer, just working for my clients in Canada and the States. I don't think you'll need anybody else to refer clients to you. So I'm really excited about that. So this introductions took a little bit longer than expected. So I'm just going to share my screen with you and just run through a few, you know, things that really I need you to think about. As development managers, because what I'm training you to do is to become development managers so that you can manage these projects to success. This is a very difficult industry. I say that if the real estate industry, sorry, if the tech industry was like the real estate industry, every time you got into your car with your smartphone, whichever kind of smartphone, there'd be 3 semi-trailers filled with knobs and tubes behind you to make it work. That's the real estate industry. It is one of the most conservative, hidebound, inefficient industries in the world. That's the bad news. The good news is if you know what you're doing, you can make unbelievable amounts of money. I did some research a few years ago that 61 out of the 100 wealthiest Canadians, 61 out of the top 100 wealthiest Canadians have all or substantially all of their money invested in real estate. They may have made it in tech. Terry Matthews is a tech billionaire, but he makes more money today from real estate, his real estate holdings in Wales and in Canada, than he does from technology. He's told me that. So if you know what you're doing, you are creating intergenerational wealth. How do you do a project? You need to do some market research. I'm just going to go through the highlighted ones. Market research, so you know what the market is for that. You need to know what the zoning is. Karina is now an expert in zoning. You have to have a really good construction guy, man or woman, who knows what they're doing. You have to know what the highest and best use is for each property that you buy and how to animate it. We're going to do more about animation than you ever wanted to hear about. One of the things, Alex, I don't know if you agree with it, but unfortunately, most architects are not trained in highest and best use and animation ideas. They are trained in pretty, but they're not trained in how to make things work. Not just work so that your ROI is better, but work for whole neighborhoods and communities. I really don't think they're trained in that. At least that's my take on it. I want you to be able to do a proper budget analysis, cap rate analysis, and do your own performance. I want to spend time with you guys working on financing models. I want to spend time with you on ownership structures. And then I want you guys to understand that sometimes it's better not to do a deal than it is to do a deal. Right? If you're doing a bad deal, don't do it. Stop. All right. And I'm also going to ask you guys to do critical path scheduling. What the heck is critical path scheduling? I think, Alex, you may have got that with me back in the day when we did our course together. We may have done critical path scheduling back then. The other thing that I'm going to ask you each to do is schedule, whenever you want to, a one-on-one coaching session with me. I want you to create a detailed agenda for that coaching session. Send it to me 3 days before our meetup. Sorry about the spelling mistake here. And we're going to spend 90 minutes together, just one-on-one, talking about what you need to talk about that's relevant to this course and to your project. So I want you to remember, you schedule when you need it, right? And I look forward to it individually, in other words, Karina, I'll spend 90 minutes with you, and I'll spend 90 minutes with Dave, separate 90 minutes. You too, Daniel, same thing, and you, Alex. I'm going to put this, I'm going to get out of here for a second. I'm going to put this in the chat box. We're almost out of time, but I'm going to put this in the chat box as well. And I've sent it to you before, but just in case you haven't read it yet, it's not that long. It's an excerpt from a much longer book. But I'm going to put this in the chat box as I can find it. There we are. And I'd ask you guys just to copy it out and read it. If you've already read it, maybe you want to read it again. It summarizes the things that I think are crucial for you guys to become expert development managers. I also want you to learn how to do critical path scheduling. I think some of you already know that, but you can get free software. If you want to use Microsoft Project, you can. It's a great piece of software, but it's very expensive. It's like $200 or $300 a month. So you can get free open source software from Project Leap, and I'm just going to put that in the chat box too. It's very good project management software. It will open .mpp files. In other words, if somebody sends you a Microsoft project file, you can open it. So I'm going to put that in the chat box too. Here we go. So copy that out, and you can see that there's the link to download it. I have it on my computer. I also have Microsoft Project, but Microsoft Project, as I said, is very expensive. Then here's a training, video training. It's not too long. It shows you how to do critical path software. I used my Microsoft Project for that, but Project Leap is the same. I want you to learn how to do that. Karina and everybody, Jake, it'll help you. Alex, everybody, it'll help you guys. Dan, and schedule your projects. Project software is really, really important because it was created for the Manhattan Project, and it was designed to help organize these very complicated projects. And real estate it's not as complicated as the Manhattan Project, but it's complicated enough. So again, I'll put it in the chat box. I guess here it is. So I'm sorry it's a bit rushed, but I want to make sure I give you these links. And so that's a video training that I did, and it's pretty straightforward. And then this is, I'll just blow it up a little bit. This is the last thing we'll do. So this is a project that I'm working on for a vet. His name is Dr. Olander. He's building a 5,400 square foot clinic. It's a beautiful new clinic. And this is the critical path software that I used, or critical path output. And it shows all the different tasks that we have to do in order to get site plan approval, and then to go from site plan approval to building permit, and then through construction, and then to the shakedown period. So here's 35 tasks. I won't go through them because we're out of time, but we go from a development manager appointment. I served as his development manager through to site plan submission. And what you get when you do these kinds of critical path schedules is you get a schedule that looks like this. And I won't go through it in detail because there is the training out there. Each task has a predecessor. And if you think about a house, you can't put the roof on a house until the framing is done. You can't put the framing up until the foundation is up. And you'd say, well, that's of course a no-brainer, except if you're building 30 houses, it gets pretty complicated, because what happens often is the framers show up and the foundation's not finished, or the roofer shows up and the framing's not finished. Project management software will hopefully cut down on that. And what's going to surprise you guys when you go through it on your own is when you actually do it properly, you're going to be surprised at how long these projects take. This is a project that we started for the vet in 2021, so more than a year ago. And when I gave the doctor this schedule, I said, you'll be finished in June of 2024. You say, oh, that's ridiculous. Except, guess what? It's now 2022. We just got the site plan submitted, or almost. And it's very likely that it'll take us another 18 months, maybe 24 months to get this project finished. So this is no joke. You have to know how to schedule properly. And this chart that you see here, which I kind of just put a few little pictures in here for you so you can see what it kind of looks like. It's named a Gantt chart. And Gantt doesn't stand for anything except it was something developed by Henry Gantt. It's a visual, sort of representation of your project. And what a lot of people still do, you can see I've got a whiteboard behind me. What a lot of people do is they take their Gantt charts, they print them out, and they put them up on a wall. They still do that, and it's very worthwhile. So I want you to learn how to do critical path methodology. So this course isn't just about theory, it's about practice too. All right, it's 1:03, so we're 3 minutes over time. The last thing, before I let you go, put in your calendar our next session. Does anybody recall? I better check my calendar so I don't get it wrong. Give me a sec here. All right, our next session is coming up on August 31st. So last day of August 31st, starting again at 11 Eastern time. So don't forget, August 31st, and we'll blitz through a lot more stuff next. This was just a kind of a get to know your session too, as well as some basic stuff. So one last thing, if you have any suggestions for me, Jessica, you were interested in things like how to get free land, the Colonnade Bridgeport model, what to do with agricultural land. I've got a very good model for that. Put that in an email to me. So I expect to hear from you guys. Don't just go away. I don't hear from you for 2 weeks. I need input from you because the course gets better. When Dan talked about he wants to do a fourplex, I was able to line up Brad and Aaron to come here next month. All right. So I want to hear from you. And thank you all for coming today and sticking with it.
Great
Thank you.
session.
Thank you.
All
Thanks,
right.
Bruce.
Thank
Bye,
you so
everybody.
much.
Bye-bye.
Great
guys.
job
See you
today.
next
Thank you.
one.
See ya.
Thank you, Bruce.